I want to turn to China now because I think in the last couple of years we've seen more Chinese engagement in that security sphere, particularly in Tajikistan. But they're not the only ones. Tajikistan has a really wide array of partners. When I went through the report, you have the European Union, you have India, you have Iran, you have the United States, who all have varying degrees of defense relationships with Tajikistan. How does Dushanbe really juggle all of these partnerships? Because some of these partners are not friends with each other.
No, and Dushanbe has been an absolute master of diplomacy to make this work. Dushanbe can be dealing with both governments out of Afghanistan, having the embassy in Horog aligned to aligned to the Taliban, whereas the embassy in Dushanbe is aligned to the old Afghan government. They've been able to work with China in, they're building drones for the Iranians. They're also working with the Turkish. They have fairly good relations with the rest of Central Asia. Russia obviously has a large military presence. China is obviously the big growing one in the region, though. And this is probably the most interesting relationship I've found looking at, because China is, we all talk about the kind of Chinese bases that are coming in here. Most of them aren't PLA, they're actually PAP, so the People's Armed Police. But they seem to be learning, keeping a distance, I guess is the best way to put it. They're willing to throw money at the Tajiks, but not as many Chinese as people think. Even the big facility they have out in the middle of, right towards the eastern end of the country, out near Kizilabad, it's only like 300 people. It really doesn't have a lot of capacity to do very much. And it's more of a foothold. China is obviously getting more involved in training these guys, giving them drones, giving them lots of money, building new facilities for them. But what we've seen is a change, particularly in the last few years. And if I were a betting man, I'd say it's probably because of what's going on in Gwadar and Balochistan in Pakistan, where the Chinese have unfortunately hit this cycle of they put more troops on the ground to stabilize the situation, because obviously there's tensions with locals. More Chinese soldiers are attacked, which forces them to put more Chinese into the area, which forces more attacks. So the Chinese in this area seem to be sort of leaning on the Tajiks, saying, look, we'll give you any amount of money you need as long as it's Tajiks patrolling the borders and it's Tajiks firing at people coming out of Afghanistan than us, because China is absolutely terrified of insurgencies or militants or extremism coming out of Afghanistan into Tajikistan. And once it's in Tajikistan, it's much easier for it to then transit into the rest of Central Asia and the west of China.